Is it recording?
I don't know.
You're not really on the screen.
It is. Okay. On April 2nd, 1792, the United States Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1792, also known as the Mint Act. This act had three major effects. First, it created the US dollar, which became the standard unit of money for the United States. It established the United States Mint, and lastly, it regulated the coinage of the United States. The United States Mint is the agency that produces circulating coinage for the United States, which allows it to conduct trade and commerce. The agency was originally placed within the Department of State and is now a part of the Department of Treasury after the passage of the Coinage Act of 1973. The U.S. Mint is headquartered in Washington, D.C., not surprisingly, and it has 4 locations that produce coins. The first location was in Philadelphia. They chose this because it was the then capital of the United States. And fun fact, this is the first, when they built the building for the U.S. Mint, it was the first building erected under the Constitution of the United States. The remaining 3 locations are in Denver, Colorado, San Francisco, California, and West Point, New York being the newest. In 2017, the U.S. Mints produced almost 15 billion coins, worth over $960 million in total. The U.S. Mint is also responsible for producing the National Commemorative Medals, Congressional Gold Medals, which are the highest award that can be given to a civilian in performing an act of valor for their country without being enlisted in service to their country. And lastly, they're responsible for producing special coinage, which includes things like commemorative coins, whether it be for the Olympics that are hosted in the United States or other major events. The U.S. Mint has other responsibilities. They are in charge of controlling and safeguarding the movement of gold and silver, dispersing gold and silver for administrative purposes, and they are responsible for distributing coins from the mints where they're produced to the Federal Reserve Banks across the United States. Despite common belief, the U.S. Mint does not produce paper money. This responsibility actually falls under the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and they are the largest producer of government security documents in the United States. They print paper money, which is their main responsibility, but they also print stamps as of 1894, as well as treasury securities, military commissions and military awards, and many other ID cards and special documents for a variety of government agencies. They have 2 locations, the first being Washington, D.C., and the second being located in Fort Worth. This location was built in 1987 for a handful of reasons. They chose a more western location because they wanted to decrease the costs of transporting the currency to the Federal Reserve Banks in San Francisco, Dallas, and Kansas City. The distance from Washington, D.C. was quite great, and it made it very difficult and a huge liability when they were transporting money that far, as well as very costly. They also needed a second location to meet increased production requirements, and it also served as a contingency in case there was any sort of emergency in the Washington, D.C. just metropolitan area. The Coinage Act of 1873 is the second major act to be introduced involving the United States currency. It was enacted to revise the current coinage laws. This act mostly concerned gold and silver as it relates to United States currency. It was the basis of the monetary standard at the time, and it ended up leading to the Gold Standard Act of 1900. So the gold standard is a system where the value of a country's currency is directly linked to gold or another precious metal. So basically the countries agree to convert a fixed amount of, or paper money into a fixed amount of gold. And they set a fixed price for this gold, and that's the price that they buy and sell it at. So the Gold Standard Act was passed in 1900 under the presidency of William McKinley, and it established gold as the loan standard for redeeming paper money. So this effectively ended bimetallism, which allowed for silver to be used and redeemed for paper money instead of gold. Currently, gold is no longer the backing of our currency. The United States dollar and all other forms of currency are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. So paper money wasn't originally the United States' main form of currency. It was first printed in 1861 when Congress authorized the Treasury Department to print paper money for currency instead of coins due to the lack of funds that were needed to support the Civil War. So it started out more like they printed the money as a form of an IOU, and whoever received them and wasn't holding the IOU, if you will, was able to take it to Treasury facilities, and they were able to exchange it for immediate payment in the form of coins. They were originally produced by a private company, but the Second Legal Tender Act authorized the Treasury Department to engrave and print the money, and then it was used as an actual form of currency instead of being redeemable for coins. 15 years later, in 1875, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing was recognized by Congress, and they were the official producer of paper money in the United States, and they are today still the official distributor of United States currency, and their process has not changed and is the way we see it today. The printing of bills has changed slightly since its original beginning. They have updated the styles and the inks that they use, the paper they use to prevent counterfeiting. But in the grand scheme of things, the design and the size has remained relatively the same throughout recent history. But that's the history of the U.S. currency, and thank you.